The story begins as Atsushi, our protagonist and an orphan, is left stranded by the riverbank after being kicked out of the orphanage. With no funds in his possession, he resorts to stealing. That is when he spots a person drowning in the river and ends up saving him. Turns out it was our second protagonist, Dazai's failed suicide attempt. Following who arrives Kunikida, his partner. While treating the starving boy to express their gratitude, Atsushi learns about their association with the renowned armed detective agency, a group of detectives with special abilities for sinister cases unsolvable by the police. Kunikida questions Atsushi about sighting a white tiger nearby, to which he reveals that one such creature has been following him for the past 2 weeks. Therefore, during the night, Dazai takes him to a warehouse to bait the tiger out of hiding. While waiting, Dazai states the correlation between Atsushi's and the tiger's simultaneous appearance. By the time he finishes, a growling tiger is standing next to him. It was Atsushi all along. In a quick beat, he unconsciously jumps onto Dazai, but the man dodges, hands still in pockets, and activates his own ability that nullifies the beast. When Atsushi regains consciousness, he's surrounded by most of the agency, where Dazai reveals him as the tiger, recruiting him into the agency. Much to his confusion, Atsushi wakes up to an emergency call from Dazai and rushes to the scene, only to rescue him again from yet another comical suicide attempt. There, he sighs his worthlessness for the agency, so Dazai offers to help in his job hunt. They eventually run into Kunikida, who alerts them of a suicide bomber threatening to blow up the building. They all rush to the scene, and Atsushi, after Kunikida's failure, helps calm down the criminal. Dazai observes the scene from behind, while the rest of his colleagues tremble in fear. Atsushi wails about the sorrows and mistreatment he has faced, yet never lost the will to live. This helps successfully distract the man, giving Kunikida enough time to subdue him. The man still presses the detonator, and the bomb starts counting down. Fearfully, Atsushi shoves the hostage over to Dazai, while throwing himself over the bomb to cover it. But the bomb does not go off. The scene was set up as a test to see if Atsushi was the right person to join the armed detective agency. The president of the agency leaves the decision up to Dazai, who deems Atsushi worthy to be a member of the agency. Hence, they welcome their new member with open arms. Elsewhere, a blonde woman tells her subordinate that the were-tiger has been found. Atsushi and some agency members are sitting in a bar, celebrating his joining while playing the guess game of their former professions. He figures all of them correctly, but no one's ever guessed Dazai's. Shortly after, they are called to meet a female client, needing help in clearing out some shady smugglers lurking in her back alley. Consequently, Kunikida, after squishing up flirtatious Dazai, assigns Atsushi his first operation, accompanied by the sibling duo, Tanizaki and Naomi. He's then advised to flee should he encounter Akutagawa, a ruthless mafioso of the darkest organization, Port Mafia. The air thickens with bewilderment as they arrive at a dead end. Cornering them, the client woman informs her subordinate and, without warning, open fire. Impulsive Naomi immediately shields them with her body, converting the site into a blood pool. A roaring Tanizaki activates his ability, Light Snow, to kill the blonde Higuchi, but he gets impaled from behind as Akutagawa introduces himself. Atsushi trembles with anxiety in wrapping his whole body, kneeling in this arena of horror. After denying cooperative submission, his leg is severed with mafioso's ability, Rashomon. Inadvertently, Atsushi activates his ability, transforming into a tiger. Akutagawa takes a few hits, but before becoming an all-out battle, their abilities get nullified as dazzling Dazai reveals the bug he planted onto Higuchi during the seeming flirting. Grumpily, Akutagawa claims to return to claim his bounty. Higuchi threatens Dazai, but the man claims to already know about their dangerous organization. As a former Port Mafia operative himself, Atsushi awakens in the infirmary, fully recovered along with his two fellows. Sitting beside him is Kunikida, who despite his own concerns comforts him. Atsushi notices his failed guise, suspecting that his existence might threaten the agency, so he quits in hopes to call off the war. While he casually steps out of the agency, on another end, Ryuro Hirotsu of the Port Mafia's Black Lizard is ordered to launch a deadly raid on the agency. Everyone is working in their offices when suddenly their front door is sent flying as Black Lizard barges in with its machine-gunned military. Walking down the street, muffled gunshot sounds pull the lost Atsushi from one misery unto another, their source. Impulsively, he zaps back to the headquarters, trying to catch his breath in a panicky sigh. For what he witnesses next renders him speechless. Hirotsu has been very easily bested by the agency members. He's greeted by Kunikida, scolding him for his ignorant absence while hip-throwing Hirotsu and stressing over the office repair costs. At the other corner, Kenji and Yosano, two other agency members, are spotted sitting atop a bunch of knocked-out mafioso, conclusively overpowering the mafia unharmed. Atsushi begins to weep with joy as he finally realizes the place where he belongs. While cleaning up after, Atsushi is excused to accompany Rampo-san on his pure detective mission. When they arrive at the crime scene, the police have already identified the victim floating in the river to be a police subordinate, Yamagiwa. Rampo searches for evidence, however Officer Minura discourages his ability. Super deduction that solves the entire case in under a minute. Soon they're joined by Dazai, caught drifting along the river. Nonetheless, disbelief continues to bloat, causing Rampo to wear his detective frames, activating his ability, and within seconds, the mystery is solved. He points at his fellow officer, Sugimoto, as the killer, and as evidence, requests him for his gun. After remaining unresponsive, he hesitantly prepares, but just when he abruptly aims it toward Rampo, Dazai shoves Atsushi at him, who capriciously restrains him. Later upon interrogation, it's discovered that he worked as a spy for an organization, and when Yamagiwa found evidence of him for corruption, Sugimoto threatened to shoot himself to force her to hand it over to him. Eventually, in an effort to save him, the trigger pulled straight at her chest. Then, as per instructions, Sugimoto shot 2 more bullets to shift blame onto Mafia, and then set her body adrift to delay discovery. With the case resolved, Minura expresses his gratitude and apologies to Rampo. On their way back to the agency, Dazai reveals to Atsushi that Rampo doesn't really have an ability. He merely uses his intelligence, the reason why the agency highly respects him. Kunikida receives a mission concerning the mysterious disappearance of Yokohama visitors. Along with Dazai and Atsushi, the trio first use their informant Rokuzo Taguchi's help to reveal the tipster to be the Azure messenger. Accordingly, they transport to the abandoned hospital, where a scream for help forces them to the basement, where they find a victim drowning in a glass tank. Kunikida rescues the woman, who alerts them about potential other victims, but they're past being saved. Now as Kunikida continues to pursue the abductor, a hunch leads him to investigate the driver, who ends up confessing about organ traffickers. As he had requested protection from the Port Mafia, the very men hurled him with gunshots. This provides the driver with an opportunity to flee, so Dazai pursues him, while Atsushi tries to contact backup. Concurrently, Kunikida uses his matchless poet ability to defend when suddenly Rashomon pierces through the car that was shielding him. However, before any further casualties, backup arrives, and once again Akutagawa retreats. The team now reaches the trafficker's building. Upon filtering, they recall it to be the Azure King's hideout years ago, where he had blown himself up together with 5 detectives after his location was given to the police by Kunikida. One of the detectives was Rokuzo's father. That is when they receive a request to disarm a bomb from a client, who turns out to be Azure Messenger. The agency has a new mission to defuse the Azure Messenger's bomb by sunset to save Yokohama from demise. Rokuzo helps in tracing the bomb building, while Kunikida and Atsushi depart, fetching Dazai when Rampo discloses the bomb's neutralizing zone, a former defense force facility. The trio just step foot when they're ambushed by the Mafia. The defensive ability Dazai and Atsushi rush for the transmitter, but face an offensive opponent. Meanwhile, Kunikida faces an ability user who breaks the key to the transmitter. As a result, Kunikida and Dazai switch places and smoothly knock out each other's opponents. Kunikida then recreates the release key through Dopo Poet and successfully disarms the bomb. Later that day, Sasaki informs Kunikida about her dead partner. That's when Dazai contacts him to meet at the abandoned hospital, where he discloses the mastermind to be shortly arriving. Rokuzo appears and jumps at Kunikida, taking the bullet shot by Sasaki. She is the Azure Messenger, who was partners with the Azure King. As she explains her motives, Dazai drops his gun onto Rokuzo, who shoots Sasaki out of vengeance for his father, before he himself succumbs to death. As a few days pass, a young girl approaches Dazai. The next day, he is found missing. The news is received rather coldly, as it has become the norm for the agency. Later, as Yosano and Atsushi are riding their return train from shopping, the conductor threatens Atsushi to surrender himself by blowing cabin after cabin. Yosano heads to the front car to deal with the conductor, whereas Atsushi reaches the rear car and spots the familiar little girl forced by Akutagawa to protect the bomb tied to her chest. Upon seeing his protective demeanor, she activates her ability Demon Snow and slashes her katana. On the front end, repetitive bombings bring Yosano to the brink of death, but she turns the tide around with her healing ability. Whereas on the rear, Atsushi wrestles to break through the girl's killer defense. Fearing for her and everyone's safety, he shifts to beast mode, finally closing in with her and requesting her to hand over the remote detonator to disarm the bomb. She reluctantly follows, but when Atsushi presses it, the ticking intensifies. That's when they hear Akutagawa over the phone with the girl, ordering her to jump off. Obediently, Kyoka, the girl, pushes herself from the train. Atsushi follows, ripping the bomb off her and saving her. Akutagawa ends the call and confronts the shackled Dazai chained in front of him. After treating Kyoka well, Kunikida instructs a seemingly reluctant Atsushi to turn the girl in. On the other end, buried deep within some dungeon, Dazai wins the insult battle with his past teammate, Akutagawa, as he claims his new subordinate to be far superior, leaving Akutagawa rotting in jealousy and Dazai bleeding from being punched. Back on the streets, Atsushi and Kyoka tour the city until she herself brings the two to the police station, where they are suddenly attacked and captured by the Port Mafia. This results in an emergency state at the agency, with their were-tiger captured. Meanwhile, the detained Dazai is visited by his former partner, Shuya Nakahara, who questions his motives for getting caught in this hostile reunion. His nonchalant responses boil him, so he releases Dazai and challenges him for yet another fight. Back home, Rampo's intelligence deduces Atsushi's whereabouts, leading Fukuzawa, their leader, to rush Kunikida to retrieve their infamous were-tiger. A brawl between Dazai and Chuya finally makes the former confess his motive being Atsushi, but when he threatens to reveal his secrets, Chuya informs Dazai of the source of were-tiger's bounty. Afloat on the ship elsewhere, Akutagawa struggles with his hatred to keep Atsushi alive, but doesn't hesitate strangling Kyoka, instructing her to continue killing. Soon, Kunikida's revving boat arrives. Joe alert. Kyoka detonates explosives to sink the vessel, allowing Atsushi to escape. Standing at the edge of the ship, despite Kunikida's pleas, Atsushi can't help but turn back, just when Kyoka is about to get killed. Atsushi takes her out of sight. Atsushi and Akutagawa finally face off. After several hits, Atsushi carries his pierced body and succeeds in breaking Akutagawa's impregnable defense. Akutagawa continuously inflicts heavy attacks on him, but Atsushi's regeneration allows him to survive Rashomon's assaults, plunging him into the water. Kyoka carries Atsushi off the sinking vessel onto Kunikida's boat. In the meantime, Dazai discovers the one who places the bounty to be the Guild, an American organization of gifted individuals led by Francis F. Fukuzawa decides to take Kyoka in after much unanimous fondness by the agency and fear for her safety. Over at the Mafia, Akutagawa is comatose, leading to the depressed Higuchi's credibility being questioned. She's soon left invulnerable as Hirotsu, Tachihara, and Jin hoot for her extermination from the organization, now that Akutagawa is incapacitated. Thus at night, to prove her loyalty, when Higuchi is informed about Akutagawa's abduction by foreign mercenaries, she decides to retrieve him. She infiltrates the enemy's base, but gets outnumbered. That is when the Black Lizard arrives to rescue them both. Later, Atsushi is assigned a new car explosion case, teamed with Kenji. Owing to Kenji's reputation, they soon acquire a lead about Gojo Youth Association's possible ties. Kenji approaches them with his rather benign direct questioning method, leaving both parties stunned. Following the interrogation, they leave the building, but are attacked by the same gang responsible for the explosion. Soon, Atsushi's fear for Kenji turns to shock when he single-handedly defeats the entire gang using his ability, Undefeated by the Rain. Following this incredible display, the duo rest and eat a beef bowl. Francis Fitzgerald pays a surprise visit to the agency, bribing Fukuzawa to purchase this gifted permit. However, Kenji sees them off as they are forced to leave with a merciless rejection. But when the next sun rises, the vanishing of a 7-story building sends them a clear message. Meanwhile, Kenji, who never came back, is being looked for by Tanizaki, Atsushi, and Naomi, when suddenly, Naomi too disappears. Following that, the guild's apprentice, Lucy, unleashes her ability and teleports a bunch of people into her ability, Anne's room. She gives them the option to escape, which almost everyone does except Tanizaki, Atsushi, and a doctor. To save their friends, they'll have to play a game of tag with Anne, and whoever gets caught will be present inside the room's black door. The game begins, and the lightning-fast Anne captures Tanizaki in a second, the room dragging him inside. Now it's Atsushi and the doctor. Atsushi asks the doctor to leave, but he refuses, saying that he's looking for a girl, and she might be behind the black door. With Tanizaki gone in a beat, clueless Atsushi thinks of escaping and getting help, but the old man reminds him of his debt to the agency. Nevertheless, he fails, and when it's finally the doctor's turn, a menacing aura dissipates, rendering Lucy frozen in fear. She has fallen for the illusionary door Tanizaki created, using light snow, just before he was dragged inside. Atsushi holds off the edges, pulling her in too, and forcing her to release her ability. With everyone freed, the doctor reunites with his daughter and Kyoka with Atsushi. As the doctor bids farewell, Kyoka trembles in fear at the sight of the man. Turns out, the old man was Ogai Mori, boss of the Port Mafia. The end. Like and subscribe the channel for more recap videos.